Are you familiar with the agricultural pocketbooks of the 1940s and 50s? No? Well, I think I'm about to change your life. Somewhere in the agricultural archive, there's a circular from 1914. It's not a book. It's definitely not a famous text. A circular, a kind of thing that states agricultural experiment stations mailed out to farmers, alongside notes on crop rotation and hog prices. And then everybody forgot about it for really 100 years. Buried in it is one paragraph about a farmer and his notebook. Don't know his name, don't know who he was, just a farmer I know, I guess. And the paragraph is, honestly, without exaggerations, one of the best practices in business advice that I've probably ever read. And I read a lot of business books. And I've done a lot of courses. And I will say that for less than 3 seconds of my time to go online and find this, it really changed how I operate my business. So here it is, word for word. One farmer I know keeps his notebook in his pocket to jot down the tasks which can be performed on a rainy day. This enables him to plan quickly the work for a rainy day. The planning in rainy day work do first the jobs which are in danger of getting in the way of the next dry weather work. The rule is to leave no rainy day work to be done when it's not raining. For in this climate, our profits are limited by the amount of outdoor work we get done. Now, I'm in sales, so there's days where I am literally tied to my desk writing up contracts, or maybe I'm giving a presentation, doing a sales training for a client, and I can't go out and meet people to get the next sale. So I'm going to break down exactly what this means and why I think it's the single most underrated operating principle for anybody running a business, a brand, or even their life. And that's the episode for today. Welcome back to the Personal Bets Podcast. My name is Chance Sweat. For those of you who don't know me, I am a business broker with Fitzgibbon Alexander here in Central Florida. I also own Sweat Equity Advisors. We're a professional sales training and business advisory firm, helping small, Main Street, and middle market companies grow their sales teams and execute on their goals. I like to joke that I get business owners what they want. So let me start here. For those of you that are listening to the podcast and aren't watching on YouTube, I would recommend that you pull over and watch us immediately because it's going to change your life. That might be dramatic, but you should come to YouTube and subscribe. So I've got here my 2 pocket notebooks. One of them is just ideas that come to mind when I'm driving. I'll pull over at the stoplight. I'll write them down so that I hear in a podcast. I find that writing them down means I'll actually remember it and implement it. This other one is something that I use to manage my ADHD. And basically every day for the last month, I've been trying this little experiment. In the morning, I wake up, I track my habits, right? What my weight was, how many steps I took the day before. Did I work out? Did I hit my 10,000 steps? Did I do X, Y, and Z? And then I write down one thing that I'm grateful for. But throughout the day, in 15 minutes blocks, I jot down what I did during that 15-minute time block. And this isn't to track how often I'm billing my clients or anything like that. It's just an accountability metric for me to see whether or not I'm actually doing what I said I was going to do during the day. Now, I find these fun and exciting to work with, but the most exciting thing that I've gotten into because of this is actually collecting some of the old ones. So this one right here was property of J.P. Gareth, and he got this one in 1946. And this one was actually mailed to him with a letter from the Swift's Red Steer Fertilizers Company, and it was signed by the manager, which I thought was pretty cool. It makes me so happy to be able to send you our 1947 edition of the Red Steer Pocket Book. You can start the year off right. The 1946 edition of this book met with such great favor among our farmer friends that we have made very few changes in the new one. I have another one here, also from 1946. I think I said 46 for that one. It was supposed to be 47. This one, the farmer, I don't know the name, but didn't pick it up until 1956 and was just recording their expenses. June hay, $500. July snap beans, $400. July oats, $600. November corn, $100. Fertilizer, $100. Oats, $8. And I just find these so interesting that this really hasn't changed for a lot of people. Now, don't get me wrong, I use AI every single day in my work, but if it's not for these analog tools, I will lose my mind. So, back to my point. This farmer had 2 categories of work. Dry weather work, that's the outdoor stuff, planting, plowing, harvesting, fixing fences, whatever requires the sun to be out and the ground to be workable. And rainy day work, the stuff you could do indoors, sharpening tools, mending harnesses, paperwork repairs. And here's where I think the actual insight comes from, is that the whole episode can be dried up, or it could be wrapped up into one thought, and it's that dry weather can be the scarce resource, not necessarily time. Most people think their limiting factor is hours in the day. This guy's figured out that his limiting factor was in very specific kind of hours, clear, workable outdoor hours. And that's the kind of hour that actually makes him more money. His own words, our profits are limited by the amount of outdoor work we can get done. Not by just how busy he is, not by how many hours he works in total, specifically by how much of the scarce, weather-dependent, high-leverage work he can get done. So he builds a system around protecting that one resource. He carries a notebook. Every time he notices a task that doesn't need good weather, he writes it down. Not to do it now, to bank it. He's building a queue of low-leverage work that he can deploy the second the weather turns bad, so when a rainy day hits, he's not standing around wondering what to do. He already knows what to do. And that's where the second part of this rule comes in, which is the part that I think, honestly, I probably miss a ton, is do first the jobs which are in danger of getting in the way of the next dry weather work. So he's not just banking up these tasks that can be due when it's rainy, he's actually sequencing them. When it does rain, he doesn't do the rainy day jobs in whatever order feels good. He does the ones that would otherwise block or slow down the next stretch of good weather first. Repair the plow before you repair the fence. If it's a broken plow is what's going to cost you dry weather next week, well, you got to do that now. And it's not really a to-do list. It's kind of a triage system, if you will. So I think a lot of people have this backwards when they're thinking about this. And honestly, myself included, for a long time, I probably operated this way. But they save the light, easy stuff for when they've got a burst of energy or momentum, right? We like to tick things off of our to-do list because it feels good when you're on a roll, right? Have you ever, be honest with me, have you ever written down something on your to-do list that you've already done just to scratch it off? I do it all the time. Right? What this guy's doing is that he's saving the heavy, high leverage work, right? I need to be sharp for this. Right? We need to be sharp for the most important things, which means that the most important things get done in the worst conditions sometimes, and the least important work eats up the best conditions. So we need to flip that and look at our own version of what dry weather and a rainy day means. For me in brokerage, dry weather is anything that requires a live human on the other end of their best. Or me on my best, right? So that's a seller conversation. That's a listing appointment. Maybe it's a buyer's call. Maybe I'm doing a walkthrough of a business or showing a buyer a business. Maybe I'm negotiating a letter of intent with another broker. Rainy day would be that SDE recast that I need to do, or drafting a CBR, or cleaning up my CRM pipeline, which I need to clean up my CRM pipeline. For sweat equity advisors, dry weather is a discovery call with a founder or recording a podcast episode with real energy behind the mic. Rainy day would be scripting, and I hate scripting so bad. I hate editing. I hate scheduling things in Publer. I hate doing Trello card cleanup. The stuff that Gabriel, for those that don't know Gabriel, he's my virtual assistant that I just hired at Sweat Equity Advisors. Gabriel, right now is when you should cut in and just wave to the crowd. And I move those things around depending on what week it is and how things are going, right? If I burn a Tuesday morning when I've got the best energy and the best availability of the week, well, doing CRM cleanup is a waste of my time. It's the same mistake as a farmer plowing on a rainy day instead of a clear one. It's a wasted resource, and I have it in the wrong bucket. So I want to zoom in on one more detail because it's the part that makes this, I don't know, more than a nice metaphor, I guess. It actually makes it usable. You can pick this up and work with it. But the farmer doesn't try to remember the rainy day task. He writes them down, right? The second he notices them, he puts them in a notebook in his pocket. And that's the mechanism, right? There's no willpower to it because there's super low friction to it. Not a, I'll remember it later, or, talk it into my voice notes and I'll never go back and listen to them, right? This is exactly why I've never been able to let go of carrying a physical notebook, right? I like field notes. They're quality notebooks, right? A bullet journal or a moleskin or heck, a piece of paper, right? Whatever works, it's always in my back pocket and I write it down because there's no friction to that. And not because it's aesthetic. My handwriting is atrocious. I do like the way the notebooks look, don't get me wrong, but because the entire value of this rule collapses the moment that you start to rely on your memory. And I've got a terrible memory, right? You will be on a call with me and you'll ask me a question that is super simple that I should know. And I'll say, hang on, let me find my notes on that, because I don't trust this, computer in my brain. So, and I'm not going to remember it this afternoon, let alone 3 weeks from now. And that's really the tasks or the thoughts on a random Wednesday, right? That could be low leverage, that I've got a dead hour that I could be using. And honestly, we never do any of this stuff immediately, right? Burning good time for a bad weather task, or you'll forget it completely and it'll resurface as an emergency later. So many times in my career in corporate America where I would be, I wake up on a Saturday morning and I'm like, oh crap, I got to do my activity in the CRM. And, if I just wrote it down and did those during the rainy day moments of the week, it would have been so much better. I would have been so much happier, really. So the notebook is what lets the farmer be ruthless about protecting his dry weather without losing anything, right? Every task gets captured, nothing's discarded, and everything has an action eventually. Not immediately, eventually. It waits in the queue until the conditions match the task at hand. And I think most productivity advice books, YouTubers, right? Everyone will tell you to protect your best hours, but almost no one tells you that protecting them requires a place to put everything you're saying no to in that moment, or you won't actually say no. You're just going to feel guilty and do it anyway. I love to say no to people. I really, really do. So how do you actually run this? I've rambled on a ton about it, but how do you actually run with this? So here's how I would translate this into something you can do this week with whatever you're building. 1, define what dry weather means to you and get specific about it, not important work, right? The actual conditions that make certain tasks high leverage. For a lot of people, it's mornings or the 2 hours after a workout, or whenever you're in front of a client or a prospect, you know that exactly what your dry weather looks like so you can recognize it when it shows up. For me, there is a lot of willpower in the morning, but I can't trust it depending on how my kids are in the morning, right? If my kids are chaotic and insane, I'm just not going to get any of that work done. So I can't trust that as dry weather. I know that from 4 to 5:30, I am at my best. And I think it's the ADHD. I don't know what it is, but I feel the pressure of my kids being insane all day, wearing down my wife. And in that hour and a half, that 90 minutes, I will get sometimes an entire day's work done because I know my wife wants me to tag out with her. Those are my dry weather times, and I try to protect those. 2, I think you should pick up a pocket notebook. It doesn't have to be field notes, although you should, right? It doesn't even really have to be paper, although I think there's something about paper, right? There's that temptation of, well, let me just check Instagram real quick when your phone is in your pocket. The second a low leverage task crosses your mind during dry weather, it goes in the notebook, not in your phone. Number 3, sequence your rainy day tasks. Don't just fill them in, right? Don't start at the top of your list and work down. Some of those things are more important than others, right? When you hit a genuinely low leverage stretch of time, your rainy time, a slow afternoon, maybe you don't have a bunch of important tasks, look at your list and don't just grab whatever is easiest on the list. Grab whatever is most likely to block your next dry weather stretch. And if you can't handle it then, work your best on it. But clear the plow before it rains again. And number 4, protect the ratio, not just the moment. So what I mean here is that the rule isn't never do rainy day work. It's that your profit is limited by how much dry weather work gets done. Meaning if rainy day tasks start eating into dry weather, on a long enough timeline, you're going to feel it in all your results. So watch the ratio over the month. Track it for weeks, not just over a day or 2. So again, why did a nameless farmer in a 1914 circular that nobody's heard about really touch base with me more than any of the modern business books that I've read? And I think it really comes down that he wasn't trying to be productive for the sake of being productive. He wasn't optimizing his morning routine with 70 different tasks and 100 different supplements. He was protecting his literal source of income, the only hours that he could turn into a harvest from getting quietly eaten by tasks that felt unproductive or felt productive but weren't. And most of us are busier than that farmer ever was. And the worst of that is knowing the difference between him and I is that a lot of the tasks I do aren't that important. We make up a lot of crap to feel productive and feel good about ourselves. We answer emails during our best hours. We take a low stakes phone call during the window that we should be prospecting. We do admin tasks in the morning because it's easy to start with. We write down a task we already did just to cross it off our list. And by the time we do get to the real work, the sun's already gone and down on the day. And the farmer's whole system fits in one sentence, in one notebook, and you don't need anything more than that. That's it. Go find your dry weather this week. Protect it like it's the only thing between you and the harvest, because for most of us, it really is. And start carrying something in your pocket to catch everything else. I'm Chance. This has been Personal Bets. If this one hits close to home, send it to someone who needs to hear it, and I'll catch you next time.